Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from our studios at the Capital Region International Airport, but we're not going to stay local. We're going to run with Jonathan Smith. He is the Senior Chief Deputy Director for LEO, Michigan's Labor and Economic Opportunity Department. Jonathan, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about a buzz term that's come up, Community Transition Playbook. What is this, and why is it so important for Michigan?
Sure. So, folks around the state this is no secret, we've got a lot of communities that over the last 30 years, they've suffered from population loss. They've seen a key business close or a plant close. And that's had an impact on those communities for everything from, the amount of revenue that the local government takes in to the amount of users and they're using the local water system or other utilities. And then obviously impacts, school enrollment, all these downstream effects when that happens. And so we've been going around the state talking to communities. And what we've heard is that they need some resources and some help to understand how they can think about approaching these challenges and how they can think about planning for not just plant closures or business failures that might happen in the future, but also how they can start doing some resilience planning to start growing and diversifying their local economy so that if something like that were to happen, it's not as damaging. And so we're kicking off a process to develop that playbook that will help communities address some of those challenges.
It's interesting because having been on bank boards for about 30 years, we always did this devastation planning. And it was like, what if the interest rates dropped? What if inflation went, all this stuff? And it's kind of along the lines you're looking at is what if certain things change? How can we help you avoid that? So what does it mean for Michigan to be kind of in the driver's seat of our economic transition?
Well, you mentioned this sort of scenario planning, and that's exactly how we started this exercise. We went to two communities, did in-person workshops. We did a third one with a group of rural communities online. And what we worked through was a simulated exercise. We said, okay, what would happen if a major employer closed? How would you respond? And what we learned is, there is an established response that kind of happens, but it's more informal, and it's oftentimes institutional memory of the key actors is what drives it. And so, I think what this playbook does is it means those communities now have a real plan for themselves, that they're in charge of their future. They're less, they're no longer required just to react to things as they happen, but they can really have a proactive plan to get out ahead of it. And I think for Michigan, what that means is, more vibrant communities that are more stable, that are able to attract and retain more businesses and residents. So it really puts us on a growth pathway, but with these sort of really locally driven plans, because that's where the expertise is, right? It's on the ground in these communities.
Well, and people fail to realize when you talk about business in the state of Michigan, probably 97% of them are small businesses. And so there's some help needed there. Now, how does this effort tie into Michigan's, I guess, clean energy and mobility transition? We're going through a lot of changes.
Absolutely. And so, we've seen a number of coal plants be retired and decommissioned over the last few years. There's several more that will be retired and decommissioned in the future. So that, by and large, we've learned is, the employee impact in those closures is not huge. The utilities, because they're such large employers, often can reabsorb those workers. And so there's not a huge impact there. But there's a massive impact on some of our communities. I mean, there are small communities where, DTE consumers, they might be 40% of the municipal tax revenue. And so if that plant closes, that's going to have a huge impact on services in that community. And so, that's just an example of one of the things we've learned about, what makes this challenging. On the manufacturing side, obviously we don't necessarily know when a closure might happen or a plant might be, closed down. All the more reason, though, to start being prepared, right? To get those communities in a place where they can have a plan. They can start talking to all the other local employers, start gaming out, what some of those scenarios might be. This is, certainly energy change is part of the story here, but the bigger story is just, 30 years, 40 years now, we've seen globalization, automation, new technology adoption, which is really all the clean energy stuff is. This is just new technology adoption, which we've been doing forever, right? So, the language might change, or the application might change, but this is not a new story for Michigan. So I think this is work that will have a lot of application in the future.
So all of this falls under Michigan's Community and Worker Economic Transition Office. Can you tell us a little bit about that office and its mission?
Yeah, absolutely. It was created by the legislature and a law signed by the governor back in 2023. We really got started with getting the office up and running last year, and have been working on a number of different programming, all of which is designed to help, whether it's a local community, a local small business, or individual nonprofits, training providers, workers, really understand what the future looks like, what the economy change is going to be, not only so that they can prepare for what might be some of the negative impacts of economic change, but more importantly, connect them to the data, the resources, the information they need to really understand where the growth opportunities are so that they can sort of start positioning themselves to take advantage of the growth, right? We've seen in Michigan that, there's been a massive amount of growth in the coasts and in some of these, tech communities, but Michigan really lost out on some of that over the last 30 years. Now that we see this return to more manufacturing and advanced manufacturing, we can really pivot and start to grow. But to do that, we need to connect these local communities, local businesses to those growth opportunities. So that's really the mission of the office.
Well, partner, this is much needed work, and thank you for being at the head of it. Jonathan Smith, Senior Chief Deputy Director for the Michigan's Labor and Economic Opportunity Department. Thanks for being with us, Jonathan, and keep up the good work, bud.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, and we'll be back with more.